How's it going, everybody? I'm glad you're here, and today we're going to be continuing on with our retrospective of the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die catalog. This video, we're talking about the year 1921. Similar to the last video, this video is going to be a little bit shorter because there were only 2 films included from this year in this catalog. However, we are going to talk about one extra film, which is our first extremely egregious omission from this catalog, but we're going to talk about that after the first 2 films that actually were included in this catalog. The first one we're going to be talking about is The Phantom Carriage by Victor Sjöström. The Phantom Carriage is a 1921, obviously Swedish, kind of horror, kind of drama, kind of think piece. Basically, there's a legend that the last person to die on New Year's Eve leading into New Year's Day typically is not that great of a person and has to carry death's chariot wagon and carry all of the dead souls into the beyond the following year while they're stuck in never-ending purgatory. And lo and behold, our main character of the film is not a very good person, and he dies going into the new year. So he is forced to reconcile with all of the bad things he's done in his life while becoming the driver of the famous Phantom Carriage. Now, when I describe that to you, it might sound kind of like a spooky version of It's a Wonderful Life. And honestly, that's a very fair description after you've seen the film. And when I sat down to watch it, it had been on my watch list for a long time. I had heard great things, but I wasn't actually aware of how iconic and well-revered this film was even at the time. Directors like Charlie Chaplin and Fritz Lang and Ingmar Bergman all saying it was one of their favorite films and one of the best, if not the best, film ever made. Which is crazy to think about that pre-Citizen Kane, this film was already considered a classic. And there's a lot of special effects in here that I truly don't know how they did it. Even today, I wouldn't know how to do this. If you're shooting a film like this on digital, effects like this are pretty easy to replicate. Just shoot a couple shots at the same frame with the same framing and then play with opacity and exposure a little bit, and then Bob's your uncle. There you go. But when you're shooting on film, especially in the year 1921, I have no idea how the hell they did it. And honestly, I don't know if I want to learn, because I think it really would detract from the magic and the awe that I was feeling while watching this film. I've heard some people say that the first 20 to 30 minutes or so was their least favorite part, and then it kind of picks up and it becomes fantastic as the film goes along. And I almost had the exact opposite experience. I thought that the first hour of this film was nearly perfect, and then there were about 15 to 20 minutes where it kind of lost me just a little bit, but then at the end, it brought everything home, and it ends in such a beautiful way. And it really would benefit from a rewatch, because I think that 15 to 20 minutes where I was a little less invested would play far differently on a rewatch, because I think the rest of this film is pretty extraordinary. The performances are excellent, and this is a film that really does lend itself to the silent era very well, because there really isn't a ton of dialogue. A lot of the incidents that this man is forced to reconcile with are purely based on facial expressions and emotions and stuff that he's physically done to people or emotionally done to people. And a lot of that is communicated extremely well without the use of words. Obviously, there's still subtitles in this movie, but a lot of it is purely visual, which is great because film is a visual art form, obviously. And for 1921, this film utilizes the silent era to its advantage pretty much flawlessly. I didn't really see a moment where I was like, I would have loved to have heard that instead of read it or just not get any context at all and just see somebody's mouth moving with no dialogue. I thought that the way that they handled everything in this film was pretty much perfect. I wouldn't have changed anything. I wouldn't have remade this film and done a certain scene with more dialogue. I thought it was all achieved wonderfully. The editing is very well done here. As I mentioned with the visual effects, the editing and the VFX are really coupled together in this movie. And again, it's concocted beautifully, especially for how old this film is and how well it's preserved and how well it was able to be cut together even at the time. There's not a lot of like minor inconvenience errors that even come up with just weathering and aging. It stood the test of time very, very well. It's shot gorgeously. There's several shots that are burned into my mind that I'm sure will influence me subconsciously someday. And it's just a beautiful looking movie, even for being black and white, and artificially color tinted a little bit in a few certain scenes. There's a little bit of green and a little bit of blue of hue added to it on occasion, but overall, it's a beautiful, beautiful looking movie. And as I mentioned, the ending is extremely powerful, and I always forget that the word for the end in Swedish is slut. So it was extremely jarring after watching this film and watching the beautiful ending that it has, and you're really trying to soak in everything and take it all in, and then the word slut is just superimposed on the screen. So just prepare yourself for that when you sit down to watch this, because I highly recommend it. I would definitely include that. I would definitely include this film in this book. Just be aware that spot is coming and it's on its way, and you're gonna have to prepare yourself to not laugh and not be insanely childish. But anyway, I love this movie. It's going to be a rewatch of mine for many years to come. I'm glad I finally got the chance to sit down and experience it for the first time. All right, the second film we're going to be talking about today is Orphans of the Storm by D.W. Griffith, and I would like to take a moment of silence to acknowledge that this is the very last D.W. Griffith YouTube apology video film and last film by D.W. Griffith ever that we're going to be talking about in this series. So let's just take a breather here for a minute and just accept how far we've come as a society. All right, that's it. We're going to move on. This film follows two twin sisters who in real life were played by the twin Gish sisters. I believe that's how you say their last name is Gish. It's a weird last name, but I think that's how you say it. And basically they were born in the prelude of the French Revolution and all the corruption and tyranny that came with that. And one of the sisters actually has gone blind due to some illness that was given to her by her parents before her parents were killed by the same disease. And the other one is obviously not blind. She takes care of her because she's actually able to see. You follow them throughout the film and their journey because one of them winds up getting kidnapped by the elite class in the government, and the other one kind of gets kidnapped by a really poor family that's kind of homeless, and the mother's kind of a greedy slime ball on the street and kind of likes to take from people as opposed to working. So the juxtaposition of the poor working class and the juxtaposition of the elite class and the negatives that come with both sides of that are shown very well in this film, especially through the perspectives of the two sisters, because one of them, the one who's blind, is kidnapped by the homeless family. She can't obviously see what's going on, so she has no perception of what these people are like. She just knows that they're not treating her well. And the other sister is obviously trying to break free of the grasp of the evil tyranny of the government and find her sister at the same time. So there's a nice juxtaposition there. And aside from Intolerance, this is probably my favorite film of E.W. Griffith. It actually seems like a film that's focused on its story as opposed to apologizing for some horrible stance on politics that D.W. Griffith took 20 years prior. And it's also less focused on being a historical epic and more focused on the actual story that it's contained in. Towards the latter half of the second half of the movie, it kind of falls into the spectacle over the substance. But for the most part, it stays on the substance part very, very, very well. I will admit it has an extremely rough start. I was considering not even watching this one at first, because at the beginning of this movie, the film just completely opens with like a 300-ish word essay on the messages of what the film is trying to say. It literally says, the message of this film is blah, 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 and it just goes on and on and on. And it's essentially, you can literally imagine D.W. Griffith behind the camera writing this, being like, oh my God, they're going to love me for this. They're going to so forgive me for Birth of a Nation for this. If they haven't done it in the millions of dollars and other projects I've done before, they're certainly going to do it with this one. And it was so annoying. Thankfully, after the 10-minute mark, this film gets exponentially better. And not to say it's great, because it's not. There's plenty of problems with it. But I think that overall the story here is a lot more substantive than some of his other works. This is one of his lesser known projects, but honestly, I feel like it's one of his better ones. This is thematically and stylistically and story-wise very similar to Way Down East, but it's far better because the performances in this film are better. There's a lot less dialogue in this film. The messages are a lot clearer. It's less focused on being an epic globe-trotting adventure like Way Down East was. Overall, I just like this film a lot more. I don't know if that's the general consensus among D.W. Griffith connoisseurs, but to me, it was. Is this an overall necessity to see before you die, like some of the other films? No, but if you get to it, go ahead and give it a try, because I think that there's more good in this film than there is bad, unlike many other D.W. Griffith projects. All right, those are the only two films from 1921 that were included in the catalog, but the one very egregious omission that we haven't talked about yet is Charlie Chaplin's The Kid. I cannot believe that film is not included in this book. That is a travesty, because that film is barely 70 minutes long, I think. It's over 100 years old, and it does more in that 70 minutes than most films released in 2023 do in 2 hours and 45 minutes. It is an emotional wallop. It is an emotional roller coaster. It makes you laugh. It makes you cry. The performances from the little boy in the film, I forget his name, but he's very famous, and I'm going to be mad when I'm done recording this that I didn't remember his name, and Charlie Chaplin are both fantastic. They go very well together. The behind-the-scenes stories of this film are a little bit fucked up, but at the same time, it made a really great product, and at least the kid wasn't too permanently scarred, I don't think, from some of his experiences on this film. Look into it if you don't know what I'm talking about. But I think that this film is extremely emotionally powerful. It's one of the Tramp's funniest movies. It's not my favorite, obviously, because some of the more iconic ones are obviously more iconic for a reason, but I think that this film is incredibly underrated. If you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend it. Honestly, I might recommend it even more than The Phantom Carriage. The Phantom Carriage is probably a little bit more culturally revered and a little bit more technically masterful and influential on film as a medium than The Kid is, so I guess in that stance, I would recommend The Phantom Carriage more. But in terms of how I felt after ending a film and what I thought about more, I would honestly say The Kid, because it's been a very long time since I've seen that film, and I remember a lot from it, and I remember a lot of how it made me feel. So I would recommend that film a lot. And if I were to get rid of anything so far, it would probably be one of the films from the previous videos we talked about. Honestly, probably like Way Down East, honestly. And I would put The Kid in there if I had to replace something. I normally wouldn't want to replace something, but if I had to get rid of something, it'd be that, and I'd throw The Kid in there. I think this film is great. So I highly recommend you checking that out. All three of these movies I would recommend in some form or fashion. Obviously, two of them more than the third, but still, there wasn't really anything we talked about today that was bad, which is great. So it's always fun to hear that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. As always, I'm loving doing this series. I can't wait to do more. I know it's been a while since the last one, but you know what? I'm a person and I had to move back into my apartment, okay? So just give me some slack, all right? We're gonna move on from here, and I can't wait to do 1922. Thank you again so much for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.